whole concept of abundance, it's like we're all in the same game of helping people. Some people need a certain method to go about it to find what they need. It does not detract from your business model. If anything, it reinforces that you stand by what you speak for.
Of course.
What a thought.
And I think it's that energy of abundance, like you said, like when you want to lift and support others and honestly, even just have a conversation or be in the same room or go to an event when you know someone in your space is going to be there. Like, it's so wild to me how the competition in wellness and fitness is rampant.
It is the best way I can describe it. Literally, I want to make a TV show about it because truly it's the opposite. It is unwellness. It is, that's all it is. It's everything we preach and stand for and supposedly promote and capitalize off of. Not we, I'm saying the general we as in the industry. There's these weird, strange, markers that take away the value of everything you're speaking on. And I hate to say it, in today's world, especially with everything that's going on, inauthenticity and not being able to stand for your values, it'll get found out. People read it. People are smart. They can feel it. They can sense it. So it's very interesting to me that the wellness community in particular has sometimes this darker underbelly that doesn't really support each other, that isn't really that well.
I know, because it's just all about like who's bigger, who's owning the space more, who has more knowledge, who's winning.
It's so stupid because you don't win. Like the way to win in wellness is that you're helping people.
Exactly.
And helping as many people as you can in the way that is going to serve them that they need. It's not a personal gain. It's a give. And that's where I always question, especially like now and having meetings or meeting more people or people in different industries. I'm like, are you focused on what you're gaining from this? Or are you focused on like what you're giving and like what being of service is? And it's a great way to read the room really fast. I'm like, oh, they're not service-oriented, they're gain-oriented. All right, I get it. I respect it. That's business, but I'm not interested in that.
But people also need to do that inner work and that like due diligence with themselves to check, because listen, we've all been in these situations where sometimes it feels like an outer gain, but like, in the end, it like strips you of your soul when you're like, why the fuck did I do this?
Yes. And you're like, oh, I fell to my ego. I fell to that idea that this experience or being in this room or being in this photo, like I grew up in Los Angeles. Like it was the whole of that. Like I grew up in an industry where going out and hanging out with the other like Nick and Disney kids that I grew up with, they would all go hang out together at City Walk and they would hang out in a group so everyone would get recognized in public. And I was like the no-name, never booked anything actor. So I'm like, I'm taking everyone's photos. And I think I had this weird prep to understanding, oh, this is how people, I hate to say use each other. It kind of is that. It's like this collective, you're valuable. And if people recognize your glow, they're going to also recognize mine. So then I can become valuable. And it becomes a strange addiction because it is validating to know that you're connected to other people, but it can be a vice very, very quickly.
So quickly. Okay, I just have to say, I fell in love with you on the Explore page.
Thank you to Never Knocked Out Crew for making all that content. I did not.
Never Knocked Out Crew. Can we get you in a room or like get you to, I mean, I don't even think they would fit. Because, wow. Honestly, there's something about you that really stood out to me. And it was honestly, it was like such a soul gravitational pull where I was like, whoa. Like, I don't even think you had said a word, but there was just something about you. And the more that I went deep on knowing more, I went digging.
Dig.
I was like,
Google.
All first post. All the way down.
I love it. Oh, God.
And there was something that I identified in you that I so deeply resonate with. And it was, I could feel that there had been some deep level of darkness. And then I connected so deeply to you working every damn day to tap into your light. Like I could feel that you work for it.
You just read me like therapy. No, that's thank you. First off, thank you for that. I so appreciate that. And it's something of you're speaking to a superpower, and I can tell that you have it. It's this empathic, On another level, though, I think a lot of people are like, I'm an empath. Yes, we're human beings. We pick up on each other's emotions. But there's a level of, I think it is a soul cellular connection when you meet somebody and you're like, oh, you've been to war, whether it be externally, internally, continuing in it, and you make those choices every single day. And it's funny, especially in a city like New York where there's so much input, and I get overwhelmed by it often because there's so much energy. When you meet certain people and it's immediate. You're like, oh, okay.
Mm.
I sense it. So thank you so much for that. And I just have to say, I have known about you. I feel like a weird fangirl because I've known about you for years. I feel like I've watched the whole Melissa Wood health world just expand. I've always looked up to it. And I think the coolest thing that was so like exhale for me was when we first started talking, just the utmost support and how positive and how just abundant you were. Like there was no sense of, okay, here's another woman in fitness, here's another woman in health and wellness. And we've discussed this, but there's often this energy that there's competition and there's only one can have it. And it's this very dated old perspective. And there was absolutely none of that. It was so light and so joyful and so wanting to see another woman win and be supportive. And thank you for that, because in our universe and in our world, there's not a lot of that with other women. And I think the tides are turning, but it's in large part because people like you acting and walking the walk. So thank you.
Thank you. I mean, it's something that I've also worked towards because I used to be very jealous.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, great work. And great job, because I got none of it. That's amazing.
Yeah, I was very threatened by, it was more so that if I was in the vicinity of anyone doing something that I felt like I wanted to call in, I was like, but they're doing it. And they're doing it better. And like, why would I? And I felt super intimidated by that, you know? Like
you count yourself out before you even tried.
Exactly. I mean, I literally remember so vividly, I was at Gabby Bernstein's first Spirit Junkie Masterclass in New York.
Gosh.
And there were so many people in wellness. And I was just like, I was here. I was not here.
And
I
you were
was
outside of self.
I was outside of self. And I was so aware of it. Because it hurt and it stood in my way for so many years that once you look it dead in the face and you can recognize that you're showing up in that way, guess what? You get to change it.
Exactly. And it's not something that's defining unless you allow it to. And I think what's so funny is we're so afraid to look at the darker parts of ourselves, because, and a lot of it's partly taught. I think, there's generational differences from our parents' generation versus their parents' generation. There's so much work that's gone in between. And I think a lot of people in our age range and in just modern times now are really picking up the labor of what wasn't done before and what they want to create in the next generation and their own kids and their own families. And it's a lot of lifting, but it is so powerful when you go into those dark spaces and you recognize like, oh, it's a shadow of something. It's not actually like a full-blown entity. It's a shadow to the power that I have. It's not the power itself.
That is so true and so good. And I'm going to be really honest with you because it happened recently.
Really?
Yeah. There was just a trigger. And I was like, okay. And I just I was like, I could like see it right in my hands. And I just said, no, this is not about this person versus this person or this situation or this business. And I send love and I gave and I meant it. I didn't say anything, but I was like, no, like there is room for all of us to win and to win in our own way. And like this whole like in an arena, there's lots of arenas. Okay. We can we create our own arena, and it's just, there's moments in time where it happens, but I know I'm like, that is the ugliest energy to even like be carrying for longer than a few minutes. And I own it. I own the shit now.
But that's what's beautiful about it too, is that with that, you can own it, but you can give yourself grace to the fact that like when you're going through a growth process, and I'm in a big transition period in my life. So, and I'm sure we're going to get there.
Yes, you
Not
are.
surprising. But yes, it's interesting when you're in that transition period, how those old habits, those old wounds, it kind of is like eclipse season, which I think it is right now, which would make
Yes.
so much sense for the past week and everything that's gone on.
It's been intense.
It's been so intense. I know. And the weather turned with it too. I was like, okay, is everything involved? Can we just like take a breath? Can I opt out of this one for once? But it's interesting how those deep wounds come back up. And every time they come back up, it's this like test of, okay, I know what I want to do. Like for me, I'm a very passionate person.
Mm.
And I love big. And I always, even as a kid, I was like, why do people do things that they do? That's wrong. They shouldn't do this. And have a lot of like rights and wrongs and black and white perspectives on things. And to be upset by like when things were unjust or unfair. And it really, when I get upset or too passionate about things, I can be reactive. And I can go straight to power energy and like, hello, Aries moon. So that's real fun. My boyfriend's sitting over there. He knows. Bless you, darling. Love you. But
I knock you at your knees.
yeah. Yeah.
I can put you in the ground with my words.
Right?
It's not good,
No, same.
but it is a gift if you need it.
It's a gift. I used it in a meeting the other day in a very contained professional way to the point, and then my agent was like, damn, I'm proud of you. And I was like, thanks. But it's a tool and it's a gift and it can wield wonderfully and it can build or it can destroy. And damn, can it
Oof.
destroy. And I think that's something whenever I'm getting hyperstimulated or overwhelmed, that deep wound growing up in like the film industry and a similar thing as well. I always felt on the outside. Like I would get very close on projects and I wouldn't get it. It would go to the same 2 or 3 girls. And there was this shame feeling that I had deep rooted that I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I never picked? Why don't I work hard enough? And I think I would be so negative to myself. So it's interesting how when I really am good at fighting, but I have to learn when to fight and when to take a breath and just allow. And that's a tough one.
That is, you just said that so beautifully. And I feel like we are soul sisters.
I know.
I'm like, girl, I knew I felt a lot in that first time I laid eyes on you, but to a T, that is what I have to work at it every single day.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the other day, I fell victim to it and I went back and it hurt. Like I was depressed. It hurt me for days. And instead of going to guilt and shame, I have been saying thank you.
Wow.
Because I'm like, thank you for giving me another opportunity to show me how I don't want to embody that. That is not, sure, that's an element of me. Like I think we both said, is good to know when you need that. But I'm like, that just drains me of every ounce of my being. It just, like I knock myself at the knee. So I'm like, no. So being able to just not react and to sit, it's the hardest thing.
So hard.
Oh,
but it's beautiful. And I think I love what you said. It's the thank you for the opportunity to also recognize your growth too. Because I think what we forget when we fall back to an old habit or an old pattern or an old wound is there can be a lot of guilt and shame that come with it. But then you also have to think, I used to mindlessly, or not even mindlessly, maybe without the level of awareness that I have now, respond in those ways. Now, it's been so long that this feels foreign. Like that alone is an accomplishment. And I think when we talk about transformation, we talk about journeys and trying to constantly grow, there's going to be those confronting periods when you're like, oh, I fell back to it. It's like, no, but look at how far you came from it before you had to.
Exactly.
And that's the win to celebrate. And we're not often taught that. We think mental health, we think wellness, we think all these things in our growth and transformation, they're check marks. And like, oh, I did it. Great. I'm good. And as somebody like I talk about it all the time, I have anxiety, I have depression. I've been through some dark places and chapters. And it's interesting when that part of me comes back up, or that younger her that really was in a lot of pain, when she comes back up or sometimes she responds is the best way that I can feel that. I go, oh, wow. That check mark, it's not a box that I checked. It's a muscle that I have to keep moving. It's a muscle I have to keep training.
Yes.
And certain seasons are going to bring it out, and certain seasons it's going to be more dormant. And I have to just kind of read the weather and know, all right, this is going to be a tougher season. I'm going to ask for my support systems and try to prepare myself as best as possible and do what needs to be done. And then go back to the basics. Like I saw on your story, you were talking like the meditation every morning, the breathing, the movement. Like those are the basics that are so fundamental to overcoming that.
Do you do that every day?
As best as I can. I'm going to be totally honest.
Yeah, no, I love that.
In this new chapter, so it's been a few months since I left Peloton.
Yes.
This very big job that everybody knew me for.
Yes.
And there's been lots of craziness and noise. It's been tough with so many moving parts and being in a different city and having these new meetings and discerning who to start building a business with, who to back away from, do we have to be careful of this? And in that, I think the two things that have helped the most is honoring my rest, which I didn't do for a very long time. And I've allowed my body to stop moving so much because it was very burnt out after 5 years on a bike in one movement pattern. My poor hips were pretty shot. And then on top of that, it was the gratitude in the morning. That's my non-negotiable. That I have to do. If I do not do my gratitude, if I don't do it in the morning, I have to do it at some point during the day because I will notice my thought patterns be completely different. My responses, my reactions, my beliefs about even how a meeting went, my perceptions are not as in alignment with what I know I need to be. I get out of self if I'm not in a space of gratitude or trying to ground back into that.
What does that look like for you, that practice?
It's 3 specific things every morning. And I try to get really, really, really specific.
You write it down.
Either I write it or I write it on my phone. Depends on what. If I write it on my phone, I have a blocker so I don't look at social media for the first 20, 30 minutes minimum of the day. Sometimes I wake up and I slept in and it's like I have 14 calls and this. I'm like, oh, okay, I got to get stuff done. But keeping that practice of either writing it down or even just if I don't write it, if I'm in transit somewhere, like in an Uber or in a stressful situation, finding little something to be grateful for. Like a little kid giggling at something. That always helps because I'm like, oh, that's how we all need to be, or looking at how the light hits a certain building or the seat that I'm in is very comfortable. Like little baby things really help.
I know. It's honestly, if you can get it so granular and not make it think that it has to be this big thing is what brings it back to life is all about these little moments that we so easily take for granted.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
And then if you don't have it, you're like, how did I not see that before?
Totally.
Brings
and
light to it.
You get into this warp speed. And that's something I've learned from living in New York City the last 5 years, which was I moved to New York for Peloton. I had $800.
You did?
Yes. That's why I moved to New York.
How did you get started in I want to know
Oh my
everything.
Gosh. Okay. So you'll love this. The full story is I was working at a very big, very well-known startup. And I did not enjoy the corporate culture there, but I was very good at producing their global content. So I went to film school. I never thought I was going to be into fitness. I loved storytelling. Yeah. So kind of wild in that way. And then from there, completely pivoted careers. Started teaching boxing fitness because I was boxing all through college to help with my mental health. I taught 4 classes at a small boutique studio in West Hollywood. The owners of Rumble came, took my 4th class ever. I pretended I knew what I was doing. I didn't. They offered me a job that evening to open their Los Angeles studio. So it was fly to New York, have this great life. I'm like, great, I'm broke. Please send me to New York. I want to live there in my 20s at some point. So that was great, did that. And a year and a half after opening the Los Angeles Rumble studio, I got a DM slide from Cody Rigsby from Peloton. And he was like, hey, do you want to audition for Peloton? Do you teach cycling? And I'm like, sure I do. Never taught a cycling class in my life. Bit of a bold white lie on that one. Maybe took 4 Soul Cycle class and was like, yeah, I got it. Meanwhile, went to a Peloton store and was like, how does this thing work? There's these weird numbers. This isn't just turn to what you feel.
It's advanced.
It's precise. I was overwhelmed and studied up for that, had the audition. And after all the auditions, a week later, he called me and he's like, hey, you got the job. Can you move to New York next week?
Wow.
Yeah. And that was 5 years ago. I had $800 to my name. I was living in a friend's basement, which there's not basements in California, if anybody knows this, but in Laurel Canyon in the Hollywood Hills. Very hippie, very, granola crunchy. I love it. And I was living in a little basement and I was like, I'm broke. I want to get back to New York. Sure. Let me see what happens. And that was July of 2019. Launched September 2019, and then COVID hit March 2020. And then Peloton took off.
Right.
And then here we are now, 5 years later, and I left July of 2024.
Wow.
Wild.
That was, it was watching the videos from your community
Mhm.
that I was like, all I could think about was making an announcement one day to like our members that I'm leaving. And I was just like, no,
Oh, the goodbye video. Oh my
I was
gosh.
so gutted.
Mhm.
I felt it so deeply. I was like, oh my God, you're so loved by these people. Like you have become this motivation in their
Mhm.
lives. And it was just like, it really shocked me. And then
Mhm.
I think the thing that really stood out to me was your grace.
Mm. Thank you very much. The decision was incredibly hard to make. And there was a multitude of reasons. Contract renegotiation was coming up. I have a lot of personal aspirations. I have a business degree. I have a film degree. There's all these parts of myself that I'm not fully leveraging and wasn't able to fully leverage at Peloton. Incredible job. Beautiful community. Like my favorite thing was spending an hour and a half after every class, like talking to people. They'd get so mad at me. They're like, Kendall, you have to like go back. You can't keep clogging up like the foyer with everybody. I'm like, sorry, but I feel bad like not having conversations with these people that they've been taking these classes through the highest and lowest chapters of their life. Like
Mm.
in many ways, and I'm sure you feel this with your community too, you become this kind of emotional support human through these moments. And then it's also like a parasocial relationship, but it's also authentic because you're being you. When you're teaching, you're giving of yourself in a way that you want. But you're trying to have that intimacy at scale.
Mm.
And it's really challenging to try to navigate that. And so when you do get time with people in the flesh, you're like, this is sacred. Like,
It's
it's the
the
best,
most
right?
beautiful thing. No, I
Mhm.
literally will stay until I say good. I have to speak to every single person who
Yes.
comes. I can't leave. Like, I'm like,
Yep.
I'm sorry. I have to stay. Like,
You're like, nope, this is not right. Like everyone's here because and you know what that's like to feel that connection, and you feel it off of them as well.
mm,
And so making the decision to leave, there was so much of like, oh gosh, am I letting these people down? Like I'm getting
yeah,
emotional about it because
yeah.
I feel so connected and also partly responsible for, these relationships. And we had wonderful conversations. Something that I wanted to bring up through my own life experience was I had launched at the Peloton platform, and I get it. Like, one, I'm a fake blonde. Clearly, I'm brunette. Look at my eyebrows, guys. Like, there's no way I'm not dark haired with, my Italian brows over here. But anyway, fake blonde hair, bubbly on the bike, all this stuff. And I was trying to find my way within, the superstar collective that is the Peloton cast of characters. And so I was struggling with that. And I was just like, I get the sense that people think, and they're not wrong based off of what I've shown them, that I'm this like bubbly blonde from California, privileged, like hee hee, which is fine. And that's great. But I'm like, there's a lot that I'm not sharing with these people.
Mm,
And we are going through the most watershed moment in modern times. We're all under lockdown. No one knows what's going on. And we're just trying to hold on to something. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do this. So I remember like sitting at home at the time in my 500 square foot apartment in New York on lockdown, like we all were. And I was like, I'm just going to go live and talk about mental health. I'm going to talk about anxiety. I'm going to talk about depression. I'm just going to get it all out there and let people know because I know people are starting to deal with this. And I felt that sense of we're not well. And now maybe we can talk about it because everyone's listening. And so I started going live on Instagram, and then the community just started building and building. And then I had talked to Peloton and really had to massage this for a while because I think I get it. Legally, they were concerned about the content, but we finally made mental health awareness rides. And my whole goal was like, I want it to be a physical representation of what it feels like to be in a dark place. Because if we can move through it, if we can experience that, but not in a passive way, in an active way, and we can make that choice to keep moving, that's going to unlock something. And I just kept feeling like the pressure and like the need to do that. And those classes to this day, we would do them every World Mental Health Day and every Mental Health Awareness Month. And to this day, and one of my proudest factoids is that they were my most popular classes of
mm,
everything I taught. And they still were every quarter, the last one. Like it could be summer, and the one from last year was still in my top 3 every quarter. And it's beautiful. And I think, it's kind of a roundabout thing, but I feel very responsible to that community. So I knew if I'm going to be moving on from this, I also feel a wonderful amount of responsibility and pressure to, in the best way, to create a space and to build something that I can help them be there and we can go to do what we've done, but on a bigger scale and on a more intimate scale.
It's it's amazing. And it's
Thank you.
so beautiful, and it's not something I think everyone can do, right? To be able to connect deeply with people
Hmm.
and to help people see through their own strengths, through your strength of talking about your struggles.
Hmm.
It's there's a lot of people who do a lot of things, but that to me was like that was it that I really saw in you.
Mm.
And I think also with the video that you had shared online about explaining, because I'm sure everyone's like,
Why?
why are you leaving?
Why? Hmm.
And I also thought about it from the perspective of like when you identify so deeply with something and then you make that choice to, I believe you said like you outgrew the shell.
I did. I did. And
Yeah.
I felt what's beautiful about anything is that, or like an experience, is that there's a time and a place. There's a beginning, there's an end. Like human existence, it's finite. Working at a certain job is finite.
Hmm.
I think so much, and especially in Western and in American culture, we identify so much with our jobs as being who we are. When someone says, okay, who's so and so? Oh, they're a lawyer, they're a doctor, they're a this. We have it so ingrained in our person that we are what our career is. And that was becoming, I think for me, everyone's like, oh, Peloton instructor, Peloton instructor, Peloton instructor. Something I wore with pride, very much so. But also, it got to the point where I was like, there's more that I can do. And this is a corporate company. And it's a corporate company that has their own set of values
Hmm.
and drive and decision makings that I don't get to make. I'm a great contributor to it, and I was honored to be a part of it. But it got to a place where I was like, I don't think this shell can serve at this stage what I want to do next. And I did feel like, there was friction and I was a bit held back from being able to really be my
Hmm.
fullest self there. And two things can be true at the same time. It
Hmm.
can be a wonderful experience and it can be so hard to leave something, but it also can be very much the time to go. And that's what it came down to.
I respect it so much. And it takes so much courage to look that dead in the face, but then
Mhm.
to also choose a different path.
Yeah. And that's, I think what it came down to was I was speaking on the bike to this community that I care so much for and saying, bet on yourself, step into your light, step into your power. Know that other forces are going to act upon you, but you don't bend when it's something that you know is a value. And then I looked in the mirror and I was like, dang, am I actually doing what I'm telling people to do? Am I actually, am I speaking out of both sides of my mouth? Am I being a hypocrite? And the beautiful thing, and I hope everyone in the community is okay with this, but like the best part of my personal growth in this job was that I was able to share my mental health journey because of that community and them welcoming me with open arms. And then it became we became symbiotic. We both did it. We
Yeah.
got to share together. Now their growth was begetting my mirror moment to be like, oh, am I really growing? Am I growing in a way that I would tell them to? And I just kept struggling with the fact I was like, you know what? If I stay, if I accept these terms, if I accept this, I'm not. And it was very, very emotional and confronting. And
Hmm.
Alex was there for a lot of these conversations, my mom, my team. And they're like, listen, you got to do what you got to do. And what was interesting, it's like, no matter what anyone's faith system or whatever they believe, for me, like prayer is really important.
Mm.
And I kept praying about it and praying about it and praying about it and praying about it. And I got to the point I was like, listen, whatever the choices that I'm supposed to make, I cannot operate in a gray area because I won't know what to do. I felt so conflicted. And I just kept praying and I was like, please make it abundantly clear the choice. And it got to a point that it was like, oh, the only choice that I have is to step out and do this and is to go my own way. And once that happened and certain phone calls happened, and I remember sitting there, I was taking my dog for a walk, and there was just like a relief
Yeah.
and a knowing.
Did you ask for a specific sign?
I did.
Okay.
I
Because I'm
did.
really,
Oh my gosh.
I've been doing that. Holy.
Passwords are amazing. God passwords are amazing. If you want to call it God, if you want to call it universe, whatever you believe, like I'm very much open to how people connect to a higher power. I think it's very important. But it's funny. I had a password for my relationship with my boyfriend.
Really?
Before I ever met him. So you'll love this. Oh my gosh, I haven't told this. I can't wait to tell people on this podcast. They're going to love this. So make passwords. Be like, there was a phrase. I was like, listen, when I find the right person, because I had dated some rough ones for a while and then was very single for a long while after a particularly rough experience. And I was like, all right, I'm so done. I'm so done. So when I meet the right man, and if he is the right man, please have him say this. It was the most random, and I'll tell you what it is. It was poison frog. I don't know why it was poison frog. I have no idea. Like, I'm like, because I was like, it's so random. And I just kept telling myself, I'm not going to go to a zoo with a date because then it's an opportunity for them to say it. Like, it's got to be the most random thing. So Alex and I, about 2 or 3 months into our dating, we were going on a hike around like the DC area. And when I was going out towards this like cliff ledge and he was getting nervous, he's like, don't go that far, don't go that far. And I was like, look. And he goes, oh my gosh, it's a poison frog. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. It's a poison frog. And I went, I swear. And he looked at me like I had 6 heads because I was like, I was freaking out like it was a rattlesnake or like something that was going to kill me. He's like, why are you responding like that? I'm like, oh, say it. What did you just say? What? Say it again. Say it again. Say it again. And he's like, poison frog? Like, are you nuts? And I was like, oh my gosh, I know.
I feel like we got to cut to his face.
I know, you remember it. I know. And then we saw 2 snakes because I always see snakes if I go hiking. So don't go hike with me if you don't like snakes.
Okay.
But yeah, he said it. And I almost started crying because I had already felt this and I had already known where we were at in this relationship and how I felt about how solid it was, how different it was. And that was this moment of gorgeous confirmation. And I was like, oh, and I was like, we're doing this forever. I love this.
No, that is so.
Have you done that recently?
So I've done it differently, and mine was definitely not as specific.
That's bizarre.
Or like a word. It wasn't a word. I have a girlfriend, Kim Strother, who's a creator on the.
I know.
You
Kim.
know Kim?
I met quick tangent. I met Kim early days at Rumble coaching. She was. Yes. I loved her. How is she?
The best.
I haven't seen her in years.
Oh my God. You guys, I could see that. Her energy is just
she's
beyond.
Fire. She's so much fun.
She's fire and she's so real and raw. And
she taught me to avoid the trash in New York. It was winter. It was my first time. We were, I think it was like something with Rumble or whatever. We were all around because she's always been in fitness. And she's like, girl, don't go by the big piles of trash. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like so airhead LA chick. And she's like, there's like rats in there. I'm like, what? No. And then sure enough, one runs out on like comedic timing. And I'm like, thank you, Kim. I will never go buy bags of trash on the street in New York City.
She's got some great street smarts. She
does.
So she also has the best dating stories in history. I actually was like, can we just sit down and share your dating stories? Because they're just like nothing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But she was the person who was like, you need to ask for a very specific sign.
Mm-hmm.
And I had started at this time, like working with an energy coach, a transformation coach, and it was just interesting. But I was like, you know what? You're right. And I just thought of in the moment, like after I left her, I was like, if I'm on the right path of changes I'm making, I need to see a red bird, which I know it sounds like I would just see red birds everywhere, but really not in New York, right?
No, there's not a lot of.
You're not seeing like red birds
pigeons,
in New York.
Yes. Yeah. Not a lot of red birds.
Have you seen a red pigeon?
There's red pigeons?
Okay, are you ready?
Wait,
you
what? Guys. What?
Because I was like, wait, is this no?
Sure?
No.
Was it painted?
No.
Okay.
So days later, and I'm walking outside, have my smoothie on my terrace, and I open the door. And I was like, this bird and I, like, we looked in each other's eyes and I was like, locked. And then I go, fucking weird. I've never seen a red pigeon.
Yeah.
And then it flies away. And I go to turn around. I almost dropped my glass and I go, oh my God.
That was my sign.
Oh my God. And I'm like, I got my sign. I've never seen a red pigeon. I'm like, this is so weird. I'm like Googling. And then
what does it mean?
I like tell my friend. And she sends me a picture that day after I had seen her of a red pigeon, and one red pigeon among, I swear to God.
No way. So like double down, like double confirmation.
Yes. And I was like, thank you. So
Exactly.
I do think when you like really call it in and you can get specific and granular, it's amazing. Because like, who the hell sang Poison Frog?
Well, that's just it. Exactly. I was like, poison frog. Like, I was like, it's never going to, like, when am I going to be around a poison frog? Like, maybe if I'm in the desert, or not the deserts, like the jungles of the Amazon. And it's like, oh, look.
Right.
You know, or like, I won't take a guy to Rainforest Cafe because that's like the logo. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But still, it was the most random thing. And I think that's what's true is when you put it out into the world and you put it out there and you're like, okay, I'm taking my hands off the wheel. It's the letting it go, and it's surrender. The biggest word for me the last year has been surrender. And it's the hardest one because at my core, I'm a fighter.
Same.
And I will like put a bone in my mouth. I will not no, I will fight. It's staying in. Like, you're not going to get it. Like, I will go tooth and nail. I will. It's brutal. It's so bad. Like, me in an argument, it's just like, girl, just stop.
Walk away.
Just stop. Like, take a breath. I'm like, but no.
Same. Yeah. I am the same, cut from the same cloth for sure. And it is, I feel like this is something I've been hearing a lot lately. And whenever I hear anyone say it, they're like, I'm just trying to make shit happen. I'm like, don't try to make anything happen.
No, you're forcing it.
Yes.
You're not allowing it.
Exactly.
And when you force things, you don't see what's right in front of you. And like the whole opportunity with Peloton, like, it was so interesting. I was working at Rumble. I was enjoying it, but I was like, I started doing different types of classes. I kind of like threw their rule book out the window on my Wednesday night class because nobody was in there. It was like 9 p.m. I went to like it was on Sunset. So I went to like some Asian restaurant down the way, knew all like the guys at the happy hour place. I'm like, can I have the happy hour like edamame? Because it was cheap and they'd give it to me for free and like all that stuff because I was super broke. And so I'd go there and then teach my class. And I was like, it became my experimental playground though, which was the best because it was all the same people who didn't like to be at that location during the day because it was more Hollywood. Everyone's taking photos, kind of, you know, a little sceney. But at night, it was like a safe space, which was really cool. And so I would have the same people who really wanted to work on their health that would come on Wednesday night. And I remember one time, I was just like, screw this. I'm trying something different. And I changed the programming and I had them at the bags for there was like a 7-minute Explosions in the Sky song because I love cinematic music. It goes back to my love of movies and just storytelling, all of it. And I was like, all right, we're going to try to make this like almost like an active meditation. So I'm going to teach them a boxing combo, but I'm going to have like every 8 count, like it's a jab, then another jab, then it's going to be a double jab cross, then a double jab cross upper. And then in between those cues, as they were building this really simple like boxing combination pattern, I started speaking, okay, like this is what you're fighting for. Like pulling up the thing, pulling up the problem. It was very, very early days of me ever doing anything like this. And I don't know what compelled me to do it. I turned the lights completely off other than like little glow so people could have like intimacy, quiet time with them in the bag. Shut down the class. It was crickets. At the end, I was like, oh my God, they hate me. This is the worst class I ever taught in my life. All this. I was so like, oh, Kendall, what'd you do? Walk out, open the door for everybody. All of like the 6 people that were in the room of what could have been 40. Every single person, tears streaming down their face, hugs. We stayed extra late talking after that class. And I think that moment was so integral in understanding, oh, this is a function to help. This is a function to do something much bigger than just take like a really cool, sexy boxing class and take a photo with your friends and move on. Like this is deeper. And I felt really called at that point. And so I wanted that experience, but I wanted it. I knew I was like, no, like I felt it in my solar plexus. I was like, there needs to be more of this and I need to go to New York to do it. And I just kept hearing that in my head and I was getting frustrated. So I was trying to find different ways and different things. And then literally a month later, I get the DM slide from Cody about the job and New York. And after I had that first interview, I remember I called my mom and I was like, I think I'm going to get this job and I'm going to move to New York. And I just knew it.
And it was not easy to get a job there, by the way. Like, I know a lot of people who auditioned.
I don't know how, in hindsight, I got that. I just knew when I went to audition at the Christopher Street studio with all the cameras, the second I walked in, I got so excited because I'm like, oh, it's a film set.
Yeah.
I love this.
You're meant to be in front of the camera.
Yeah, I loved it. And I felt really, really at home in that. And I think the whole experience though, even like I think back of like the girl that I was when I moved to New York City, and
Mm.
I had not a clue of like what it's like to live in the city and the grit and the hustle and just how much that role, that job, that time period of COVID, all of it, I feel like it was like 8 lifetimes ago.
Mm.
But I'm so grateful for it because it really did shape me. And you go through things and you realize like, okay, I can't force it. And you can't like I can't force this next chapter for me, but it's beautiful to watch. Now I'm trying to like, okay, I feel like I have to just be an open basket. Like I'm like this, and I'm just like, okay, this drops. Okay, that's not going to make the basket. That's okay. That's really cool, but that's not right now. Then this one right in the center. And you just meet this person through somebody else and they have the connection to this. And it's beautiful when you don't try to force it.
It's such a dance.
It is. It's a flow.
It's a flow.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in that flow state and the openness of like, let's see,
Yeah.
and I get it. It's, people will say to me all the time, like, okay, sure, I understand that, you say like, just go for it. The time is now. But I'm broke, or I don't have the means, or,
Mm-hmm.
and I think those are serious things, right?
Totally.
Where that can totally block us
Mm-hmm.
from putting ourselves out there. But it's like this inner energy, you
Yes. And it
know?
starts there.
Yeah.
And it does. It's like, I think too, when you get to a place where you recognize it, and for me, like I've been broke.
Yep.
I still
Same.
kind of have a broke mindset in the best way. Sometimes like my finance guy's like, Kendall, stop pinching your pennies.
Yeah.
Like you're okay. You don't need to do this. You can, go on a vacation here or do this. He's like, you can't have that relationship
Hmm.
with money either, because then you don't appreciate it. And then you become very like, you're like a chipmunk that's trying to store all the nuts for the winter. And it's like, yo, girlfriend, it's been like 8 winters. You're fine. Like you're
Yeah.
good. Like you can have an acorn. You're fine. But it's interesting with the freedom of that too, is knowing like I was so happy when I lived in my little basement with my hot plate and my mini fridge and my $800 a month, and figuring out, okay, how am I going to go to Trader Joe's and make it count? But I loved what I did and I loved teaching people.
Mm.
And I woke up and I would dance around my little tiny space and I made a home and I made a life for myself. And I think understanding that from that to working hard and now having different means and different opportunities, I try to always go back to her because I'm like,
Mhm.
all of this is wonderful, but it's all at the same time, like it's not necessary.
Yeah.
And there is an opportunity to do things when you have, it's not just like, oh, I need X amount saved up and then I can have a kid, or I need this and then I can do this. Life doesn't work that way.
Hmm.
I think you have to listen to that. It's that energy here. It's that knowing here. And it's like, if you feel it, okay, you're going to have to make some sacrifices and trade-offs or different, get creative, but there's such freedom in that. And then that's how you find the better relationships or the better business opportunities, because part of it is just stepping out and taking that risk. There's an energy that happens the second you choose to make that decision.
The second.
Yep.
When you face the challenge of change head on,
Mm-hmm.
and you get really clear with, because I think, I've had a massive season of this myself where I'm like, things feel like they got away from me. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
why?
Mm.
Why? And I had to look at that and I had to own it.
Yep.
I had to own that it was because of decisions I'd made.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only thing that I could do was look at what needed to change and slowly chip away at that,
Mm-hmm.
which is so painful.
Yeah.
Change is so hard, but when
Mm-hmm.
you embrace and when you choose it and you
Mm-hmm.
choose to lean all the way in, it's wild how the universe meets you to support you.
Oh, completely.
Like, it's like right here, don't
It's
forget.
like surfing. It's like just
Mm.
before. I don't know if you've ever been surfing. It's the coolest
I'm
experience
not a
ever.
surfer, but I have friends who do surf and I'm
There you
enamored
go.
by it.
It's beautiful. I will tell you, if the energy of it, even if you don't have to get up on the board, even just sitting out there, have them tow you out, like paddle out and just feel the energy of the waves. The coolest thing is the moment before a wave comes and you're like, oh, the next set is coming in, everything collectively starts to lift up.
Ooh.
It's the coolest sensation because it is that. I think as human beings, we know this. We distract ourselves or we don't practice listening and kind of rooting back down so that we can hear when these things happen. And I mean hear, not even like audibly,
Mm.
but on a feeling level. And that moment before something new is about to happen, usually it's chaotic.
It's so
It's
chaotic.
awful. It's like everything that you thought was solid ground or that you thought was reliable or that even people, all of this, when you're at the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, it's closure. And closure means a little bit of death and a little bit of ending and meeting that and meeting the, oh wow, this is a purge moment. Everything that I thought about my life and where I thought I was going to be is not maybe what's going to happen now.
Mm.
And again, it's that surrender. It's that moment before you're about to take off in a wave and you know it's coming. If you don't like start paddling and move, if you're in that spot, you're going to get careened into it. So you just gotta paddle, do your thing, focus on moving, keeping the energy, following that energy forward. And then the second that you get to the end of it and you drop in, you have to let it go. And you have to just plant your feet and stand on business and go. And it's the most beautiful experience because that's kind of what that moment before big change and big shift is. And then you ride it. And then it's unbelievable. It's so fun. You're flying. It's totally better than what you could have expected. But I think it's important to understand the buildup and that for change to happen, there has to be kinetic energy building for that shift to occur. And that's the only way we do things. I think it's that in a personal level. I think it's that on a societal level. I think we're all really feeling that right now. There's so much chaos. There's so much, it's so hard to like open up your phone and like not doom scroll and be like, what timeline are we in?
So much division.
There is, and
Ugh.
it's heartbreaking. And it's so anti what we are at our core, which is we all need to be human and communal and we share experiences. And that's what makes us human is that we're all in this finite time together, experiencing together, whether we all are on the same page or not. We're here together. We all got picked. We
Yeah.
got picked at this. We're class of 2024. So we got to just like get through it. But I think what's interesting is that all the chaos happens just before transformation. And it's like the winter before you get the spring. And, I can keep going on with different analogies and just
No,
be
but
like
it's
super
so
poetic.
good.
But
Your analogies are strong. I feel like
thank
I'm
you.
going to surf. I'm trying surfing.
Oh my gosh, we should go. We should
like,
so go.
I'm really afraid of the water. Like I love the water, but I
Mhm.
like stop at a certain point because
Yeah.
I'm like,
Well, and
what's in there? What's out
yes.
there?
And there's a
The
lot.
unknown.
The unknown, very, 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 very valid. I think finding clear water, which is possible, is great to do. And warm water is important. It's not great to learn how to surf in a wetsuit because you
Yeah.
already feel confined. You feel foreign. You
Right.
feel like you're an astronaut in outer space. Like, oh, I need to put a suit on to be here. I shouldn't be here. You're like, I need a barrier. I don't know. I don't know about that. But no, like I love like Central America surfing is amazing. Like Costa Rica would be a great spot.
Mm.
I love to surf in El Salvador. It's a beautiful country. There's lovely, lovely, lovely people, great surf spots there. That's one of my favorite little homes. And then the beaches are black sand
Oof.
because it's all from volcanic lava. So like even just grounding
Yeah.
and laying on it and being like, thank you, this is great. It's fantastic. So
Okay.
maybe El Salvador will go.
I feel like you're opening me up to just lean into my fears a little bit. I mean, I actually, it's been a lot of leaning into fears.
That's
That's
so
the only
fantastic.
way.
That's the only way. And I wish there was some type of light switch or checkbox or like pop a pill and you're good. There's not.
No.
The human way is going right into it head first and just being like, all right, we're going to send it and see what happens.
What age did you realize that you had anxiety?
Oh, it came early. It came very, very early. It came in the form of obsessive compulsive disorder.
Mm.
So at like 10, 11, I had very, very, very intense thought patterns. And then that turned into just ritualistic behaviors. So, plus my parents, I couldn't be barefoot, which is very interesting. It's one of my most proud things today is that whenever I start getting more anxious, I start getting like conscious of my feet and I don't like to be barefoot. So it's a good like gut check for me. I had to wear socks. I had to be tucked in and swaddled almost in my bed. I had to flip light switches a certain amount of times. And I was so worried that if I didn't complete the ritual, something bad would happen. And it was interesting to have that manifest in a way at 10 or 11 years old, where I thought that on one hand, good for me for this level of confidence that if I didn't complete these tasks, the world would fall apart. So, I mean, I guess I was confident in a strange kind of convoluted way. But it definitely was debilitating. It got to the point where I was trying to find control over something that I couldn't control, which was my mind. And I have great parents who were very pro therapy, very open minded to it, which was very helpful. So I went to a therapist. We worked on different thought patterns. My favorite thing was our sand timer that we would use. So because my thoughts would be very intrusive and I could spiral and be
Mhm.
very fearful of like my parents dying or something bad happening. I could really formulate these
Yeah.
scary situations. I would have a sand timer and it was like 3 minutes and I'd turn it. And how we worked through it was almost like a form of exposure therapy, was meeting something head on. And for the amount of time that the sand was dropping, I was allowed and I would allow myself and I would force myself to think my scary thoughts, to meet them head on and to give them their space and give them their place and time. And then after the sand would run out, then I had to start coaching my brain and saying, hey, if the thought comes back in, we did our sand timer. We had our time. We gave those thoughts their moment. They're not welcome here right now.
That's so good.
It was amazing. I still do it as an adult.
Yeah.
I don't want to have
I
anxiety now.
love that.
It's very helpful, especially in transition seasons when we have, because the problem with negative thoughts is that they're addicting.
Mm.
They're really fun to feel in a messed up way because it's much easier to see everything that could go wrong because of past traumas or experiences or the way that, it's a neural pathway.
Yeah.
Our brain is used to looking out for what could happen wrong. And maybe we've had times in our life, and I know I have, where my worst fears did come true. And so my brain's trying to protect me from that, and I appreciate it. But also, the future is unknown. And if the future is unknown, that means that it could be 10 times better than anything I've experienced in the past. But I can't be mad at my brain for not knowing that that's a possibility because it's only gone with me as far as I've been. So it only knows some of those scary things.
Right.
It only knows some of those bad experiences I've had in like corporate environments or in, working on certain film sets or different things growing up in Los Angeles. Like it knows those scary moments, but it doesn't know the great moments that could be. So I think, again, like giving my brain grace by understanding, okay, I have to train this muscle and build a new neural pathway where the unknown is actually positive opportunity.
Mm.
It's not, walking the same path as what my past has been. And it's tough.
It's tough.
It's tough because especially I think the more adult we get, the more life experiences we get, particularly those scary ones, they're very hard to let go of when we build really deep neural pathways.
Yes.
It's like the Grand Canyon. You're like, okay. You're like, I need a little evac out of here because this is a little rough.
Are you an only child?
No, I'm the youngest.
Oh, you are?
Mm-hmm.
And you have
an older brother.
Mm-hmm.
And he's great. He is the best. He's so like not spotlight, lives in Tennessee with my nephew. Great dad.
So sweet.
Just like down home, lovely, simple, kind, good heart, wonderful.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to depression,
mm-hmm.
because I think a lot of people like almost pair anxiety, depression
mm-hmm.
together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think feeling those feelings at a young age, which it sounds like was when you started recognizing
mm-hmm.
that there were signs of depression.
Yep.
Like how did you approach that or work through?
Mm-hmm.
I think almost even like the differentiation of
the anxiety
the two,
first,
and even obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah. So I think the OCD was the foray of the anxiety.
Yeah.
Where the depression really came into play was the thought patterns. And they were very, very, very quiet at the beginning. Like I had grown up in the film industry. I'd grown up acting as a kid. All of that world and that realm and the high pressure and the, time is money. You're on a film set. You are acting as an adult when you're a young kid. It's not healthy. We know this. We're now seeing all these documentaries about it. But I had a very, very, very high standard for myself. So if I didn't get to a callback on a certain role that I knew and I worked hard for, I thought that I would beat myself up about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, work harder. So I'd go and I'd study more scripts, or I'd be like, I want to take another acting class. I want to do this. It was so high performance driven. And that really came to a head when I was in college. Mm-hmm. And what's really interesting, I went to USC, I got into the film program, which was like so hard to get into. And I was like, I have this opportunity. But I was in a film project that went to Sundance. I was in the short form version of it. And then I was also in the feature. And my agent at the time was like, oh, you're not going to finish college. Like your career's about to start. We're going to get you on all these generals. Like, I was like, oh my God, it's finally happening after years. And it didn't. And the film was at Berlin. It didn't get into Sundance. There was some crazy stuff that happened behind the scenes on set that I think prevented it from really going further. Everybody in the cast, literally like all of them have huge film careers. One person was like nominated for an Oscar. Like it was like oh, it's perfect. It's going to happen. And then it went nowhere. And I think I had this idea. I had a timeline in my head that I have to make it by 18 or make it by 21, definitely before I graduated. So as I got through school and I had great grades, I was in a sorority for a second, and then I didn't get kicked out, but I left because I was too busy in film school. The girls were great, but some of it I was like,
I don't think I could ever do it.
no, it was not my vibe.
Yeah.
I tried. I gave it the college try. It wasn't my thing. And then I cheered a little bit. Like I was trying everything and I was fronting like I was great, awesome on it. And it got really, really dark. And it was November of my senior year. And I lived in this particular apartment building, which we'll talk about a full circle moment that happened very recently that was wild. But I was in this apartment building. I was just so numb. I got to a point where I stopped feeling. I think I had such shame and such frustration in myself. And that it's again that neural pathway. I was deep in the valley, like deep in it. And I just felt like there was like not color in the day. I just felt like I was on autopilot and I wasn't really living. I could front with anybody. None of my friends knew. Two of my best girlfriends this day are floored. They're like, I had no idea. And that was hard too. And it's been hard to feel that and feel bad as a friend now to be like, God, okay, it is what it is. We have to forgive that. But it came to a head one night and I was very, very close. I climbed up to the roof of the building and there was a roof line, like a gate around the edge of it, climbed over, was moments away, had a flash. This was fascinating. Had a flash, out of body experience of like seeing what would become of my mom and my dad, seeing what would become of my brother, and caught something in the corner of my eye. My phone, which was on silent, because I put it on silent, was glowing and it was kept lighting up. And I was like, oh, and it kept lighting up. And I was like, oh my gosh, what the hell? Climbed back over. It was my mom. She was calling me like 15, 16 times. And I picked it up finally. And she's like, what's wrong? I hadn't talked to her, mind you, for probably 6 or 7 hours. She's like, what's wrong? Mother instinct, totally. And I was like, can you just come pick me up? And she came and picked me up. The rest is a little hazy because the next 3 months, I don't remember very much of. She picked me up. I got out of all my classes for that semester because my grades were high. My professors were like, she's fine. We'll pass her. Like, she's already getting an A in the class. Like, we're fine. And then over Christmas break, I don't remember much about that or that New Year. And then I remember my dad coming up to my room. This is in Southern California. And he's like, look, at the point I was not eating. I couldn't get out of bed. Was struggling even to shower or brush my teeth. It was like really rough. And they were very, very obviously concerned as parents. And my dad came up and he's like, look, I love you very much. My mom and I are talking and I need you to fight this. Because he said, I will put you in inpatient. And I think that's what we need to do. I know you don't want that because I know you want to graduate on time. To this day, whenever I'm super stressed, I have dreams that I don't graduate. It's like so effed. Don't you love it? Anyway, so he looked at me, and this is where this phrase came from that I would close all my classes with, which has kind of turned into the basis of what I do. And he said, what do we say in this family? And he's like, it can knock us down, but it can never knock us out. And I need you to make, oh God.
I'm great.
I always cry at this. Oh, because I see my dad's face when he says it. And yeah, and I looked at him and I realized, okay, I wasn't doing it for me at that point. I didn't know me. I didn't frankly love me at that point. And I knew I loved him and my mom and my brother. And oh my gosh, I'm sorry, girl. We're both crying. And I said, all right, I'll do it for them. And then that was 2 to 3 times a week in therapy. And then I moved into a lovely little studio that I called the Chateau because I love Chateau Marmont. That's still like one of my favorite places in LA. I used to go and write my papers there and would see like one time I got to talk to Patti Smith. It was like the coolest thing ever. She's so dope. And I decorated it. It was my little home. It got torn down when they extended USC into the University Village, but it was my little safe place. And I graduated on time. Got that done. Yep, I know. Such a huge moment.
Huge moment.
Worked at that big tech company for a few years and then had an experience there, but then pivoted into fitness.
It's wild how things are like guiding us.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like the movie didn't get picked up, all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it's this redirection.
Totally.
It's this, and thank you for sharing that
Oh,
because
of
it's
course.
so deep. And I feel, from being in a dark place for many years, moments,
Mhm,
still have many,
mhm,
moments and seasons of darkness myself.
mhm.
It's the internal stuff that I'm still trying to get myself to relearn different patterns or look at things
Yeah.
in different ways or not fall back.
Mhm.
And it's not, I don't think of it as like, I'm not like even taking a step back, but it's going back to a way of being that I know I want to shift away from.
Mhm.
But it's those like wake me up moments
Yeah.
that help us see, like, and I always say to people too, like, if you can't get yourself there
Mhm.
from like your own inner motivation, do
Yep.
it for someone you love.
That's exactly it.
Do it for someone that
Mhm.
you look at and you're like, imagine your life without them. Like,
Yep.
what
And
would you
imagine
do?
what their life would be without you. I think that was, you know, that moment of seeing for the first time, that was that clarity moment just before my phone lit up, and it was my mom, and it was so visceral. It was like, I hate to say like a Christmas carol, like looking at what life would have been, but it really was an out of body experience.
Yeah.
And knowing, like, I saw what it would have done to my parents. I saw how it would have torn apart my family.
Yeah.
I saw what it would have done to, the systems and the love that we have. And, we've been through a lot as a family, like mental health runs in my family. It's genetic usually. And I would have been perpetuating something rather than breaking it. And now I can't, the odds are when I have kids one day, the likelihood that they'll have anxiety or depression or something of it is high. And the most important thing is that I prepare myself and do what I need to do on the work on myself so that I can help them
Yeah.
and we can get this better. Because it's a normal part of being human,
Yeah.
but it's not normal how we treat it right now. And
Mm,
it's not normal how we don't talk about it. We're getting there, which is beautiful. But now we really have to start doing the work about it. And that's where it's okay to have darkness.
yeah.
It's okay to have these thoughts. It's not okay to act upon them,
Hmm.
but it's okay to experience it
Right.
because so many people do. It's 1 in 4 now. They used to say 1 in 6. They're saying 1 in 4 between the ages of 12 and 25 have considered and had suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised. And we're in a society where, especially young minds, we're getting so much stimulus. We're getting overwhelmed. Human beings aren't equipped to have more than 100 people in their immediate circle. So now we're trying to navigate hundreds of thousands, let alone
Mm,
hundreds of thousands of perspectives, viewpoints, commentary, all of it. Like, we're not, that's a wonderful tool, but we're not built to deal with that as
no.
as persons. And so I think finding how it's kind of going back to self. It's going back to the basics. It's, how do I move my body? How do I connect with my people around me? How do I go and like serve something in society and in the world? Because I think that's truly a calling that all of us have. And it doesn't have to be, your service can be the fact that you create beautiful art and that's your expression. It can be that, you like to, it could be your joy. It could be the fact that,
Hmm.
you're a motivator, or it could be that you're that person that will sit with someone and has the ability to sit with someone in a very dark place and just be present. Like, we have to rethink and retool how we give value to that. It's not necessarily being the captain of industry. That can be of service, but that's not the service goal.
Right.
Right? Like, and I think it's redefining that and understanding that when you look at people, I think when you go through darkness, it changes how you look at the world. It gives you an empathy for everybody, even the people that you can't always understand. You're like, damn, there's something so rough going on in you.
Yep.
And it's not my job to fix it, but it's also not my job to make it worse.
Or to like leave a nasty, I love when you speak up
Mm.
about like, because it's just, I mean, it's so thick and so
I know
deep
you get it.
with
I
the,
know. And we
oh,
we
I get
both
it
get it.
bad.
Yeah. And it's
It
very
used to all
interesting.
be love until things hit a certain point and then it's like
That's
the
exactly what
floodgates
happened.
open.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I
And they're
don't go on
so
certain
mean.
they're
No,
so I don't look
no.
on message boards or anything. Oh my god. I
Oh
went
my God.
once.
I don't think
My
that I would.
self-esteem went
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, no, no.
so
My
bad.
friend will tell me about some things and I'm like, okay, okay.
Like, no, no, no. You're like, I don't need to go on like whatever. No, I'm so with you. And I think it's so unfortunate because I think today, because of what we consume, we don't believe that it's possible for people to be successful and kind and have good values. And it's really unfortunate. And it makes me sad, but it also, I'm like, bet. I'm going to double, triple down, and it's going to be hard. And there's days when it really bothers me, and I got to write a note or go take a walk or go vent to a family member or to Alex and be like,
Mhm.
But you will not catch me being an angry soul or berating you. I will stand up for myself. I will
Mm.
say, hey, this is not the energy. This is not what we do. Like, I'm not going to accept it. I'm not your punching bag,
Mhm.
but I'm not going to punch back. And I think for someone who's a fighter, learning when to take it on the chin, because I'm like, we're in different weight classes. And it's not because I'm better than you. I just have a little bit more life experience. And I've been through some dark shit that you can throw that punch at me. It's not going to knock me down. So you just go. You can, that's fine. Punch
Do
me today.
you respond sometimes?
Sometimes I do.
Same.
Sometimes I do.
So
There's
do I.
occasions. I think when there's a teachable moment there,
Same.
or especially a big thing for me is like, if you are a woman who, I get upset when it's from other women and other women who, and it's wild. And I'm like,
Always.
and
A
it's
lot of
always,
the time it's moms.
it is. And then I'm like,
So
oh
sad.
gosh, you're going through so much as a mom.
Yeah.
You're taking it out here. And I'm like, this is not the energy yet. When it's like some dude being gross, I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh God. I'm like, whatever. I'm like, get a new shtick. Like, okay, this has been around since forever. Like, get original, please. But it's very interesting. And I say this a lot, and nothing against it, but oftentimes it's like white women.
Yeah.
And I did this thing on TikTok, and I was so upset. It just frustrated me the other day. And I was like, stop it.
I loved it.
It's not about us. It's just not.
No.
No, don't complain. You're good. I'm not a threat to you. I'm actively trying to help you.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't see that, that's fine.
To see your own strength.
Yeah.
That you've
I'm
got
like,
it
I'm here
too.
pouring into you. Like, I really believe in you. And then part of you is like, I want you to be well. And I really do. Like, I don't mean, like, when I say this stuff, and I like, sometimes I'll type back and try to be like empowering. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if I say that. It's going to come off like a little bit uppity if that's how it's perceived, right? Because we can't control people's perceptions.
Of course.
But I'm like, there's days when I'm like, nope. And I think that's what's unfortunate, because again, it goes back to this idea that's, I think, instilled in women. And I've thought about this a lot lately. I'm like, why are women taught to pit ourselves against each other? Like, what is it? And then I realized, I was like, wait a second. Because if we weren't distracted by hating on each other and keeping us preoccupied, we would actually be building and constructing and dismantling and reinforcing what needs to be done.
Mm.
Because if you go back to like even ancient societies, how many of them, it was on the basis of the family unit and of women and of the women helping each other out, and kids were raised. It was like the whole community and everybody looked out for each other, all that. But the power of it was, there was a feminine energy at its core. And I'm like, wow, because women were helping each other and moving things forward. Look at how far ancient societies got. And then now I'm like, it's really convenient if we're all really pissed off at each other and we're spending time beating each other and berating each other down. No wonder we're not progressing forward.
Yeah. And there's also the whole facade of like pretending to be a supportive girl's girl. That is honestly worse.
Oh my
God. Than just be who you are.
Listen, I don't need my favorite thing, and I love this. I love when a woman comes up to me and she's like, I thought you were a bitch, but I met you damn straight. And I'm like, I like that. I'm like, go, bring it. I love that. And that's, I think, beautiful, because it's this idea too.
It's honest.
Yes. And it's okay. And we can all trigger each other, and we can all feel like a certain way. Or I could have said something, or I could have popped up, or somebody could take a clip of what I said, or which they have, and said, oh, she thinks this. I'm like, no, but okay, well, welcome to, edit culture where everything can be that way. That's fine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You're screwed either way. But I respect the honesty. And I think that's what's beautiful, is that like, if you can sit down with somebody and have, God forbid, a nuanced conversation where the core of it's general respect for each other. Mm. We don't have the same experiences, maybe. We don't have the same viewpoints. We don't have this. But what we do have is we're both existing at this moment right now, dealing with all the same shit that we're all dealing with, and we're all going to croak one day. So if we know those things and we just understand, like, okay, we don't have to be in super alignment on this, but I respect the fact that you're walking your walk and I'm walking my walk, bet.
Done. That's
Yeah.
it. It's so simple.
It really is.
It's like,
I know.
it's really wild. And then people wonder why they're unhappy and like aren't carving out these paths for themselves. I'm like, because you're spending so much time critiquing what you don't like about this person.
I'm like, just put your energy into you.
Yeah.
Just build it.
Yes.
If you don't like it, that's great. Fantastic. You learned what you don't like. That's a huge part of building something. It's a huge knowing your taste.
And you don't have to like me.
No.
I like me.
Yeah. Like, I'm not here to like, oh my gosh, I got one recently. It made me laugh. It really made me chuckle. It was like, oh no, it was funny. I think it was like an outfit or something I was wearing, or someone's like, I don't like it. And I'm like, okay. I'm like,
I commented to someone today. I was like, that's okay. You don't have to.
Yeah, like, that's fine. No, or someone said, this is da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, oh my gosh. Sometimes I do like the sarcasm.
Oh, same.
It's the best. And I was like, oh my gosh, let me give you my sincerest apologies that I did not create content solely for your gaze, your image, and your needs. I feel so terrible. Can you please give me your number so I can directly contact you before I ever post anything ever again to make sure it's good for you? Like,
every now and then, it's just like you have to. You got to be human.
Yeah, you got to be. Yeah, I think there's a smart way to give grace.
Sometimes I send a voice note, and I'm like, "Yeah, Sally, you seem stressed," and like I
would love to get a
swear to you, and I'm like, I'm sending you love because I can feel it, and like I just want you to look at what you need in your life. Because, like, there's something.
You're like, I really do.
I really do. I do that sometimes.
The voice note is bold, but I like that because then you can hear the tone of voice.
Yeah, and I'm just like, listen, I feel your pain. You're hurting. And, like, this isn't about me, you know? And, like, sometimes, usually, I get one back.
Really?
Yes. And it's like, thank you. And I don't even know why I said that to you. And it's like, always, right? It's like,
you're like, okay.
I'm sure they're, everyone's, we're all fighting our own battle.
Yeah. And it's easy to, I do think, particularly for people who didn't grow up native to social media or native to the digital world, it can be very confusing.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, no. There's a person a person is posting. This isn't a brand. This isn't like a fictional character. This isn't Spider-Man. Like, this is literally a human being who's sharing their life with you, whether you want it or not. You don't have to consume. You have the right. But yeah, I know it's very interesting. It's very, very interesting.
I mean, you are so, I feel like you are everything and more that I even like felt through the screen. I feel you really exude that energy of just, you're such a powerhouse and so supportive. And it's like through your journey of also being so courageous and moving towards something that you just felt. And it just gives everyone the permission to recognize that within themselves. And I feel like you as a podcast host, you're a motivational speaker. I see you on stage. I see all the things. And I'm so excited for you in this next chapter in our new friendship.
I know. I was like, wait, when are we hanging out after this? Because like, I'm like so ready. I was like, please, thank you. Truly, this has been so lovely. Like, it doesn't feel like we're having a conversation in front of microphones, which is the most beautiful thing. And when someone can be so present and honest and as open as you are, and to be vulnerable and to confront your own problems and your own growth patterns, but to do that on a stage for other people to see, hey, it's okay. Two things can coexist, and I can be working on this. I can love myself, and I can really not like this piece that I'm working through. It is so important. Because we need to see that as women. We need to see that as society, that it's not about this perfect image of what we're going to show the world. And that's girl boss. No, this is everything, light, shade, shadow, gray, all of it in between. And that's what matters. And just thank you for that, because it's so empowering for me to feel safe. Like, there's another one out there and she's walking it and she's doing it, so I can do it. So thank you for leading the way.
Thank you. There's so many of us.
There really are.
There are. And the more that we allow ourselves to share our truth and our own, for me, it's like the things that I'm like, oh, should I? And I'm like, yes, I should have.
Yes.
Because it's like we all have this within ourselves.
Yes.
And to act as if we don't is a disservice.
Yep.
To women, to all of us.
Yeah.
For us to really own who we really are.
Yeah. No, you don't have to edit that much.
You don't.
We're removing the edit button.
Yes,
It's okay.
please.
It's okay to learn and grow. And sometimes it's okay to stick your foot in and be like, that was not the move.
Yeah.
But you know what? We're going to clean them off and keep moving.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, you're a powerhouse.
So
where can everyone find you?
They can find me at Kendall Toole, Toole, on Instagram, on TikTok. I have my newsletter that I launched a few weeks ago that's doing super well. Lots of fun recipes, fun stuff.
Yeah. What is the newsletter?
Newsletter is called NKO Club.
And it's never
knocked out. So
never
it's
knocked
NKO
out.
for short. And then that will keep eyes peeled on that. That's going to turn into a few other things.
Amazing.
So,
I know. Yeah. I cannot wait. I'm peeled.
Yeah. I will keep you posted.
I cannot. I mean, I have like ideas. I'm like,
you're like,
I'm like, I just feel like
that.
there's things for, I don't know. There's so many things, but
totally.
Here's to going for it.
Amen. Here's to going for it. Here's to learning from it. Here's to giving ourselves grace in the process, and also using passwords, because passwords work.
I mean, and by the way, she met her lovely boyfriend who's so sweet. I feel good vibes and energy here on Raya.
We did meet on Raya. We did. It can happen, guys.
Yes.
People do sometimes talk on there. And,
I've heard
and then don't talk on there
things.
for too long. Oh my God. I mean, you have stories.
A lot of breadcrumbing, huh?
Lots of, also just lots of, oh my gosh, you won't believe who's on here. Like, that's probably one of the most fun parts of it.
Oh, I mean, no, it is.
I mean, yeah.
I love to, I'm like, give me that phone.
Oh, I'm sure you're a good swiper for friends.
I feel like I'm a really good swiper.
Because you pick up on it.
And I feel like I have to say this because I said it to my best friend and I was like, stop taking the breadcrumbs because you're leaving no space for the loaf.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
And her answer should be like, looking for my loaf. Looking for my
right?
loaf.
Oh like,
no,
if
so
you
true.
keep taking, like, you're not going to get your piece.
There's no sustenance. Honestly, just, no.
But
I am
drop
so
the
with
breadcrumbing shit.
No.
Like, no.
Oh.
You're leaving no space.
There's no
for the
energy for that.
goodness
Yeah.
to come.
And then you get addicted to the up-down cycle. They did it with rats. This is terrible to say, but they gave rats a dopamine hit on a drip, but not consistently at not consistent times. You know what happened? The rats were waiting at the drip whenever it could be. So guess what? You're distracted from all the other things that are happening around you. Meanwhile, they put a consistent drip on the other side of the cage, but they never recognized it because they were too focused and hyper-focused on the breadcrumb drip.
I mean, listen, I recognize I'm married, I have children, I have a business, but get comfortable being with yourself.
That was exactly it. That's what he and I both did.
Knowing yourself, knowing what you like, and like eating alone.
Yeah.
All those things.
Oh,
I love to eat alone.
Oh, I love it. He jokes with me, like whenever I love to eat and I love to put on like whatever show I'm binging. Currently it's Perfect Couple. It's really good. I'm enjoying it. But and he's like, oh my God, you're iPad kidding again. I'm like, you know what? I am. That is how I emotionally disassociate. I get a nice meal, I make it all pretty, and then I pop up my little iPhone and I just watch.
I love it.
Oh my gosh, it's so healing.
It's important to emotionally disassociate.
Yes, and
like,
not scroll.
Your thing that lets you. I feel like you and I could actually talk
I know.
hours.
I feel bad. They're over there
no,
like, guys,
so
can we wrap it up?
But I feel like we needed to keep all of this, and we're just going to end with take the leap, right?
Yes.
Go for it, and
bet on you.
Bet on you. Yay! This was so fun.
I know. I love this.